Hi everyone, welcome to the Fight with Teddy Atlas. I'm Teddy Atlas III, joined by my father, International Boxing Hall of Famer, the pugilistic poet, Teddy Atlas. How you doing, bud?
I'm good. Happy Father's Day, bud, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. That's the way to start this show this particular Sunday. Uh, you're a great father. You're a great son. You're a great father. And this country, I mean, there's no greater asset. Obviously, we're not here without God. We're not here without mothers. But there's no more important element and asset in our country than to have fathers, to go along with the mothers, because that is, I mean, when you grow something and you're growing a child, when you grow something, you need water and sun. You're going to grow the crops that we live on. And I would say that the water is the mom, you know, does everything to birth the child, to bring the child into a healthy state, to grow the child. But then the sunshine is the father. I'm not taking anything away from you moms out there, but the father has to shine on the kids. The father has to shine love. He has to shine confidence. He has to shine discipline. I know moms do it too, but he has to give that element that all children need. The element to know that they can depend on themselves. They can like themselves. And that they have a buddy. Yeah, a father. But also a friend that will teach them that, will grow them in those kind of ways. And I think that one of the most important things that sometimes shows to be a shortcoming in all societies, not only ours, is when you don't have enough fathers. Being fathers, being the sunshine, the one that gives the kid what they need. Sometimes they need that little bit of a push into the right direction, that they can do this, that, yeah, you're good enough to do this. And other times they need a push in a way that, hey, you're starting to veer off into the wrong direction. You can't do that. You have to get back in the right direction. And we will go to a game. We will go out to the park. But you must do your part. Those simple things that are so simple, they are sometimes missing from a child's life. And sometimes that is as necessary as the water. And that sun that shines on them, that a father can shine on them, can just give them the element that makes them know that they matter. That they matter in a way that they can make their father, yeah, their mother too, of course, but that they can make their father proud. And that in some ways they can even be like their father. Something to climb towards, something to reach towards, something to every day pick a kid up. So I just wanted to take a minute to say, hey, to all the fathers out there, God bless you. Uh, the more good fathers we have, the more good people we have, the more good sons and daughters we have. So God bless everybody. Have a great Father's Day. Enjoy it. Enjoy it with your kids, with your fathers, hopefully, if they're still around. And if they're not still around, just look up to heaven and say, hey, Dad, thanks. Thanks for being that sunshine. So,
Beautifully said. Thank you, bud. I am blessed to have you as a father. I'm blessed to have Teddy the Fourth as a son to share this special day with today. And as you said, happy Father's Day to all the great fathers out there. So with that being said, bud, we'll jump right into the fight action. Talking about fathers, we're going to start off with the guy who calls himself Keyshawn Davis's father, Andy Cruz. Andy Cruz, the amateur standout from Cuba. He was the co-main event. They fought in Madison Square Garden at the theater there in New York. He fought against Hironori Mishiro. This was an IBF title eliminator at 135 pounds. This was Cruz's only sixth professional fight. Now, we talked about it a lot in the past about Andy Cruz, about some of the similarities maybe to Vasily Lomachenko. Cruz, not a two-time gold medalist like Loma, but Olympic gold medalist, and a guy who's taken the path and he's pushing it very, very quickly in his pro career. Winning this IBF title eliminator, he is now in line to fight Raymond Muratola for the IBF championship at 135 pounds, his next fight. Before we get into that and his prospects moving forward, just want to get your thoughts on the fight. To me, it was very easy and evident to see. He was just too much speed, too much skill, and it took about a round to see that. It was like drilling a speed bag. But what'd you think of this fight? What do you think of Andy Cruz moving forward?
Yeah, I love him. But first of all, when you said Andy Cruz, let's explain to the audience saying that he's Keyshawn's father. He said that on the mic, just for some of the people that might not be aware of that. He said on the microphone, basically, I'm your father, because they got some stuff going. They, as you said, they fought in the amateurs a few times. Yeah, and Cruz got the better of him each time, from what I understand. So, obviously, he's playing with his head. He's playing with him, and he's also promoting a future fight, Andy Cruz, by saying, hey, listen to your father, and Cruz being a father. It reminds me a little bit of the great Boston Red Sox pitcher. You're not going to like this memory because you were a big Yankee fan. We all were. But Pedro Martinez, when he used to say to the Yankees, I'm your daddy, and when he would shut them down, which he did quite a few times. Although the Yankees did get the better of most of the time, or of the Red Sox most of the time, except that one time, which was hard for you because you were up in Northeastern University, and you're a Yankee fan, and you had all these Red Sox fans around you. It wasn't easy for you. I even sent some help over there in the form of Ron Borges, the great writer, the great sports writer, and a few friends of his. I sent them all because you were, it was a little difficult for you. I mean, listen, you didn't help your cause by, having a Bronx Bomber shirt on as you walked around, and as they were celebrating, finally breaking the curse and beating the Yankees after 150 years. Really, it was about 85 years. Whatever it was a long time. But listen, as far as Andy Cruz goes, whether he's the daddy of Keyshawn or not, before we make him Jose Napoles, one of the great, or Kid Chocolate, so many. I mean, I could go on and on with these great Cuban fighters. I'm sure Pedro Martinez Fraga, the former fighter and great lawyer and friend of mine and friend of my family's and friend of the show, I'm sure that he's smiling as I mention these great Cuban fighters. But before we make Andy Cruz really one of those great Cuban fighters, just like the lineage of the great Mexican fighters, or whatever nationality you want to go to, there's lineage of great fighters for the most part. But before we anoint him that caliber, and bestow that on him, that's taken to like I did when I called the fights at ESPN for 25 years. That's taken into account who he fought. I mean, yeah, he looked great. He looked terrific, tremendous. But he fought a guy who's tall and long, who doesn't know how to fight tall and long. And when you don't know how to fight tall and long, and you're only tall and long, and you just you stand tall, guess what? You're an easy target. And Cruz showed that. And when you have quick hands, and you're concise with your punches, and you got all that amateur background, and you're calm, and you're able to find the right spots, you're going to look great. Now, look, Cruz, I like him. I like him a lot. But again, before we make him, all of these great Cuban fighters all merged into one, let's remember, he had batting practice. If I'm going to go back to the baseball analogy of Pedro Martinez, he had batting practice. I mean, he looked like, and I want my man, we got Richie, who's the best over here, and we got, obviously, Bennett Garcia, who's the best with Eddie. I want him to get this up if he can. He looked like, I know I'm going to jump weight classes, but there were spots there, and I don't know if I've ever compared anyone in this kind of way, because this was so sensational when you saw it. A young Muhammad Ali against Cleveland Big Cat Williams putting punches together. When Ali was at his best, when he was in there with Big Cat Williams and he was running combination, oh my goodness, wow. Oh my, that's all you can say is, oh my God, wow. But part of it was Big Cat Williams, who had been a formidable fighter, big puncher, heavyweight, top contender. He was at a stage in his career now that he wasn't quite the same. But still, Ali just lit him up. That's the only way I can say it. He showed his speed. He showed his ability to put punches together. But he had the right guy at that time to do it with. Cruz had the right guy to do it with at this particular time. And yeah, he lit him up. Yeah, what did he show me? He showed me hand speed. He showed me accuracy. He showed me patience when he didn't get carried away early on. And then he showed me the ability to understand when it was time to put the foot down on the accelerator. He showed finishing qualities. He showed all of that. He's not a huge puncher. He's an accurate puncher. But when you put them together the way he put them together there, well, you don't have to be a huge puncher. So I think that I tie that up with a bow. For me, I want to see him with better guys. We're going to see it now. When you put yourself in position and you fight with something, or you fight in something that's called title eliminator, you're telling the world, okay, I'm ready for everybody. Yeah, I'm ready for everybody. So now I want to see him with everybody. And the last kudos I'll give him, he's doing it with 6 fights. Whatever it is. I don't know. I don't have his record in front of me.
6-0 with 3 knockouts now.
Yeah, so he's doing it with 6 fights. Now, you could do that when you got 300 amateur fights or whatever the number is. And, you've done the things he's done and fought all the international competition since you were a kid. You're more able to do that. You have that kind of experience. But still, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty damn impressive. Like Stephen A. would say, it's pretty damn impressive to see that. Yeah, because he's doing what most guys do after 20 fights. 25 fights. He's ready to fight. He's jumping in the deep end. He's jumping in the ocean. He's saying, bring the sharks, bring everything. I'm ready now to go scuba diving. I'm ready to go into the deepest parts of this ocean called boxing. And again, 6 fights. Yeah, you're joining the company of a Regan Dial, another great Cuban. The company of a Lomachenko. The guys who have been able to win titles, or at least he hasn't won it yet, but to fight at that level and be ready to fight for a title with a short amount of professional fights. Morel, another Cuban who did it in a short amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all great examples. And that's what we started off saying. Lomo-esque in a lot of ways. His professional debut was versus Juan Carlos Burgos, 35-7-3. That was Andy Cruz's pro debut. So he stepped it up quick. And next will be Raymond Maratala. We just watched him. We just talked about him recently. He looked very impressive, trained by the great Robert Garcia. So that's gonna be a big one. The one thing before we move on from this one, Bud, you touched on. It's what made this fight so scary to me, watching it as just a viewer. He isn't a huge puncher, but the precision and the accuracy, as you said, and he couldn't miss. Starting to get worried that that's how a fighter gets hurt, right? Not from the one shot and you're out, but the accumulation. And I was starting to think, does his trainer have something against this kid? Does the ref have something against him? I think it could have been stopped a little bit earlier, but it finally was. Thankfully, the ref stopped it in the 5th round, and Cruz gets the win and sets up again for his mandatory title challenge against Raymond Muratalla next.
Yeah, 100%, bud. That's a terrific point. It's very true. And I don't know, that Mishiro is a tough game guy. Give him that. What a game guy. But just too easy to find. And to get found by a very good fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cruz trained very interesting to me. His trainer is Boots Ennis' dad, Bozy Ennis. So that Cuban style with that Philly style. We'll see what's next for him moving forward. So that takes us to the main event. We'll jump right into it. The main event was Richardson Hitchins versus George Kambosos. This was the main event there at the theater at Madison Square Garden. Hitchins, we talked about, New York City, Brooklyn kid who has trained since he was very young in the gym subsidized by our foundations, the Dr. Atlas Foundation with the Cops and Kids. And we said that you nailed this fight in the preview last week. When we talked about your preview and your prediction, you liked Hitchins, and you said, he goes as the jab goes. And that's what it was. From the start to the finish, the jab was going. The jab was just too much for Kambosos, blinded him. Snappy, sharp, fast, couldn't miss him. Putting punches together off of it. Credit to Kambosos. He showed the character, the heart to stay in the fight. He tried to make some adjustments, but he was just outgunned. Seemed like he had a knife in a gunfight. Just didn't have anything to keep Hitchins off of him. In the end, Hitchins stepped on the gas and got him out of there. Gets the win, his first title defense. What'd you make of this fight? What do you want to see next for Richardson Hitchins?
Well, I can't cover it much better than you, but yeah, the only thing I could add to it is a little color. You know, you sketched it out. You beautiful black and white sketched it out. The only color I could add to it would be a movie clip from my man Bennett in The Untouchables, bringing a knife to a gunfight. You know, that's the only thing that I could add to it, is bringing that movie scene to it. But Hitchins is, I think he is the consummate surgeon now in boxing. With that jab, with that straight right hand, you know, very sharp, very accurate, very concise, very surgeon-like. And to be a surgeon, you got to have a scalpel. What would the scalpel be? It'd be the jab. And that's what I talked about. Yeah, he's all jabbing right in. He's standard, but he does it very well. He does it really well for a guy who really is almost as basic as they come. Jab and right hand. We'll travel. We'll get the job done. He used his left hook. He put his left hook in there more than he had in the past. I like that. It was a nice left hook to the body. That's how he got to stop. The same way Lomachenko did against Kambosos, going downstairs to the body of a very game fighter, former world champion. Let me touch real quick on Kambosos. Give this guy credit. Maybe his career's done now. When you talk about squeezing every drop out of your ability, you're talking about Kambosos. He got everything he could out of his ability of what God gave him and what he worked to have. You know, he didn't have great speed. He didn't have great power. He didn't have, any of those physical, great neon-type talents. But he had great heart. His technique was good. And he took advantage of the opportunities. He was opportunistic. We talk about that in life to our young people. Be opportunistic. Take advantage of your moments. Be ready for your moments. He had his moment against Teofimo Lopez. He was ready for his moment. Say whatever you want to say. Maybe Lopez was off. Whatever, it doesn't matter. He was ready for his moment. He won the world title. And then from that point on, he went on and with his team around him, give them credit. They were smart. He made a lot of money. He made the most, business-wise and talent-wise, athletic-wise. He made the most he could out of this sport and what he had. So going back to Hitchins, I'm going to label him as, you always have to have a surgeon around. You always have to have a doctor around. He'll be the doctor. He's my doctor. He's my surgeon of boxing right now. And he did show the ability to bring another weapon to the table, another tool for a surgeon, besides just the straight scalpel. And that was the left hook. To the body, to the head. He timed it at the right time. He's starting to use that punch in there with his go-to tools, his go-to weapons, which are his jab, sets the table, and then sets it beautifully, and then eats with the right hand. Yeah, he's sharp, he's concise, but the last thing I'll say about him and all the great assets that he has, you can be a surgeon and you can have a scalpel, but you have to have good eyes. I don't want to see a surgeon with bifocals on, in the OR room. Rich, God forbid you had to get surgery. I don't want to see that surgeon going into the OR room with those thick glasses. Like the ones from my cousin Vinny. When Joe Pesci, the lawyer, said, "Dear, how many fingers I got up, dear?" And she gave the wrong number. And he said, "Maybe you should get those glasses checked." And she said, "I might need thicker ones." And they were pretty thick. They were pretty thick already. So you got to have good eyes. I'm giving credit to Hitchins. He's got good eyes. He sees, he stays calm, he sees everything, and then he delivers. He controls range really well, so he can get his jab off, so he can control you with that jab at the right distance and have distance for the right hand to come in behind it. That's his defense is really his ability. Yeah, he shoulder rolls a little bit. He keeps his hands up pretty good. He'll block when he has to. But his real defensive posture, his defensive ability is controlling range, stepping out of range, stepping into range. And again, having those really, really good eyes where he's able to see everything, to see right through the fog. The fog of chaos when punches are coming at you. He's a young kid. He's only going to get better. You can see, and he's very patient. Almost too patient sometimes, but really not. But almost too patient, where he'll go a little quiet sometimes in certain rounds and maybe give you a chance to climb back in. Maybe a chance to out-hustle him. That would be the hope of most people. Could I outwork the guy? Could I out-hustle him? During those quiet moments. But that is part of his temperament. His temperament is to be calm. His temperament is to be concise. His temperament is to be properly cautious in a business where you have to be properly cautious. His people are doing a good job with him. He's doing a good job. He's grown well. And he's going to continue growing well.
Yeah, very impressive performance by him. And I do hope that is the last we see of Kambosos. Obviously, it's up to him. He's a great champion, former world champion, to choose and decide. But at 32 years of age, he has now lost 4 of his last 6 fights. He's made a ton of money. I'd like to see him move on and retire healthy and happily. Also, I would like to say that in regards to Kambosos, the commentators were saying during the fight, I don't think it would have made any difference. His trainer and his whole camp, they trained in Canada. His trainer was not able to get a visa and make it over to the fight and be in the corner. I don't care who was training him that night. I just don't think there would have been a difference. I think it was Hitchinson's night. He was too sharp, too ready, too big. And I think we would have got the same outcome regardless. The final thing I want to throw at you, bud, and I want to touch on is Lomachenko, and you just talked about it, did hurt Kambosos and soften him up and stopped him to the body. Hitchins followed that up, got the knockout. One of the commentators said during the fight, when you've been hurt to the body before in the past, the body never recovers. That's why, or part of the reason why this happened again. Do you agree with that? Is that something that once injured or hurt to the body, that you're always going to be susceptible? Or is that more of a mental thing that guys are taking into a fight?
The body will recover. The mind might not. The memory lingers. The body heals. the body tightens up. The body is fine. It's where you hit the guy. If you're going to hit a guy in the liver, you're always going to affect him. You know, there is no fortifying the liver other than putting an elbow there. Yeah, you can't do that. I know some of these crazy guys out there, they have that cosmetic surgery where they, Rich, they do. I know you don't need it. You're ripped up. You got 6 packs, 8 packs. You got the whole stuff going on, right? My grandchildren, my grandsons, they have that too, by the way. But there's some of these crazy, people out there that are having this surgery and they put stuff in there to make their bodies look better, stronger. That ain't working. That ain't working. A left hook going right through that thing, baby, and hitting you. You get hit in the liver. I don't care. You're gonna get hurt. You get hit in the solar plexus. You're gonna get hurt. I mean, it's that simple. I don't think the body, gets weaker. I think those spots are weak, and if you hit those spots, they're inherently weak. The mind, though. You might be a little bit hesitant getting in there with a body puncher when you've been dropped by the body or stopped by body shots. Yeah, the ghost might be up in your attic, banging around a little bit, saying, "Oh, you sure you want to get in here with this guy? Yeah, you sure you want to go down that road again?" But I'll leave it with this, and this is a very interesting place. Since you brought it up, you make this show better, bud, because you invite conversation. You invite us to go to places where it invokes thought. And you know what you just invoked with me for thought? And you know where I'm going. I know you know, baby. Dubois and Usyk coming up. That's it. I'll leave it there. We'll follow up some other time. We'll give you another. We'll give you another. One of those short videos my son puts out there with the crew we got here to talk about that when that fight gets a little closer. But we know that it's controversial that Dubois hit him low, the whole thing. But we also know that Usyk has been affected by body shots. We know he's great. He's great. Did I say it enough time? One more. He's great. One of the greatest winners you're ever going to see. But he has been affected, like we all have. If you get hit there, he has been affected to the body. Now he's going in there again with Dubois for the rematch. Dubois, will he rematch? Of course he will. That he hurt him to the body, that he, even though they said it was low, in his mind, I hurt him to the body. In his mind, he's going in there with that confidence, with that fuel, and he wants to, he's saying, I can do it again. And then you wonder, to the point my son just brought up, you wonder, Usyk, is he thinking about that? Yeah. Is that in his mind? Is that maybe a bat in his belfry? Because if you're going to beat Usyk, man, you gotta have every advantage you can. And if you can put a few bats in the belfry, why not? Why not? Just thought it was a perfect segue to just leave it with that. We can go into it more thoroughly. We can x-ray it. We can CAT scan it. Some other time, if you tell me we want to do that. And if the fans tell you we want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing I'll just say here, my question would be for Hitchins, how long can he continue to make weight at 140 pounds? That'd be my biggest concern. Right, there's been some tough weight cuts in the past for him. You could see he's a bigger guy at that weight. So can he continue to make the 140 pounds? And what's next? We heard him call out Haney. Haney's already moving on up to the 147-pound division. Teofimo Lopez was there in the building. Maybe it's that. Whoever it is, I'm excited to watch Richardson Hitchins in his next title defense.
Yeah, what you're saying, Bud, is you're excited and optimistic to watch a young fighter continue to grow. Because that's what we're watching. We're watching a young fighter grow. And literally grow. Where, he does have the frame, the skeleton, to put more weight on, to get bigger. And he is young.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we move on, I'm going to take a quick pause. Thank our sponsor, Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens introduces the new AG1 Next Gen. It now includes 5 clinically studied probiotic strains shown to support digestive and immune health with added vitamins and minerals. They've also now have new travel pack designs resulting in a much easier pour to improve the customer experience. So whether you guys are looking to boost your energy levels, support your immune system, or address gut health, Athletic Greens is the way to go. Simply visit athleticgreens.com/atlas to claim your special offer of 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. All right, moving on from the boxing, we'll head over to Atlanta, Georgia for the UFC Fight Night main event where the former world champion Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley. Now this fight was Usman's first fight in about 20 months. He had lost 3 fights in a row, comes back at 38 years of age, takes on a top challenger who has won 7 in a row in Buckley, and he turned back the clock. As he said after the fight, he got the monkey off his back. Very easy fight, right? In the regards to, I was thinking of you, geography. Usman, the wrestler, wants to get to the ground. Buckley, he needs some space, needs some distance, needs to strike. Usman didn't allow that. Very simple takedowns in the first 4 rounds, then controlled the ground, controlled the position, and controlled the fight. In the 5th round, Buckley made some adjustments. Maybe Usman started to tire a little bit. He did have some success. He did make it competitive. He did make it interesting, but it wasn't enough. In the end, Usman back in the win column, gets the win. What'd you make of this fight? What'd you think of the great Kamaru Usman?
One of the reasons why I think that Carlos Monzon is one of the greatest middleweights of all time. And there's so many great ones, my goodness. You know, I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson, you could go on and on. It's a great division and a great history with that division. But one of the reasons why I thought Monzon was so great was that he was able to make other fighters fight his fight. That's it. You hit it, bud. You hit it out of the park again. Usman really, for the most part, made Buckley fight his fight. I don't care if it's MMA. I don't care what combat sport. If it's my business, if it's Dana White's business, if it's, what business it is, what form of combat it is. Whoever controls the geography that is best suited in the ring or in the cage for their talents, they're going to win for most part. They're going to win unless a lightning bolt comes out of the sky, which it does. It does once in a while. Matter of fact, if you want to see lightning bolts come out of the sky, go and look at that list my son made me put up. You guys told him to tell me to put it up. We put it up. Great comeback fights. Greatest knockouts out of the sky lightning bolts. Go look at that list and then go and Google those fights, and you'll have your full of seeing lightning bolts come out of the sky. If you like to see that, sensational endings. Usman fought his fight, and he did not allow Buckley to fight his fight. Styles make fights. Again, whether it's MMA or whether it's in boxing. And until the last round, you could probably say, for me, the trainer in me would say this, that Usman's striking defense was better than Buckley's takedown defense. Is that fair, bud? Is that fair to say? It was his ability to deal with striking, which was not his forte. That's Buckley's forte. Usman's forte, strong. They're both strong, but a strong guy. And he's a great grappler. He's a great wrestler. He's great on the floor, great on the mat. Not that Buckley doesn't know what he's doing. He does. But Usman's forte, Usman's really, strength is to get on the mat. And he was able to do that because Buckley's takedown defense was not as good as Usman's striking defense. When Usman had to survive the striking in those first 4 rounds, He did. He did, and he got the takedowns. Again, like Monzon, he had the ability to make it his fight, to get the geography he needed and to fight his fight. And I give credit to Buckley. Tough guy, great endurance, because that's got to tire the crap out of you, fighting off all those takedowns. And it tired Usman, too. Usman, 38 years old, 7 years older. He did start to tire in that last round. And give Buckley credit. He made some adjustments. He did, but it was a little too late. And it's the perfect place for that saying. It was, because by the fifth round, where he did start to get a little traction with his striking, because he used his legs better to move. He didn't give up the takedown. He didn't let Usman shoot to get him on the mat. He was able to do what he needed to do, but he needed to do for longer periods. He had the last round to do it. He couldn't quite get there. He needed the knockout. He couldn't quite get there. And the reason he couldn't quite get there, and I give him credit for having a chance, because, again, he stayed on his feet. He controlled range better. He got his hands off better. He went all out offensively, which he had to do. And just moving his hands more was a deterrent to Usman for the takedowns. That alone was a good takedown defense. It stopped him from shooting in, because he couldn't shoot in past that hailstorm of punches without taking a big risk. So, yeah, you could argue you should have done that earlier. All right. The one thing that I'll leave it on, again, from the trainer's perspective for me, in the striking area, if he would have used the jab a little bit more, maybe even to the chest of Usman, but if he would have used the jab a little more and just taken a little fat off some of those big punches, those wide punches, took a little fat off, went to the butcher. You go to the butcher, here, take a little fat off this steak. I want it to be a sirloin. And the only way it's going to be a sirloin is you got to remove a little fat. If he would have removed a little fat from those punches, they would have been sirloin. They would have been a little straighter, and they might have had a little better chance to get to their target. I'll leave it at that. That's it. I'll be a butcher today. I hope I didn't butcher this whole freaking thing up, but I think I made my point. I think that Dominic Cruz, Paul Feldman, they do a marvelous job. They all do, but it was their turn up. They were the ones who were working this particular fight. And man, that Dominic Cruz, he tells you what's going on. He really does. He gives you a quick course on what you need to get a quick course on to enjoy the bout or enjoy the fight a little better. And Feldman too. The one thing that I would have added is what I added. Take a little fat, use that jab just a little bit more. And you know what? One of those strikes that had to land, might have had a better chance of landing. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great breakdown. And you're right. Paul Felder does do a great job, as does Dominic Cruz. And a great job for Kamaru Usman and his trainer, Trevor Whitman. Great performance.
Trevor's my man. Trevor's my man. He's my man. He was a kid. I used to be a kid, bud, too.
I remember him working the boxing corners for Friday Night Fights.
Yeah, and I caught a lot of his fights, and he was a young boxing trainer on his way up. Did a good job, and now I'm very happy for him. I'm so happy. You know why I'm happy? Because he worked hard. He stayed with it. He followed his passion. He followed his dream. He shifted over lanes. He found a lane to shift over to the UFC, and it was the right lane for him. And he's taken what he learned from the boxing into that. And he's one of the preeminent guys. He might be the best striking coach. I don't want to take away from any of the top guys, but he's definitely one of the top guys if he's not the top guy now. And I'm just happy for him, and I'm happy for him because he's a good person. Also, he's a gentleman.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to them, and congratulations to a couple other fighters I just want to say out there. They turned back the clock. They showed the character and the champion's heart and the resilience to come back and get back in the win column. And that's on the co-feature, Rose Namajunas, former world champion. She was almost choked out, dug deep, found a way, gets the win. And also I want to shift back, just touch on in boxing, Nonito Donaire. Fight was not on television. He fought in Argentina at 42 years of age. Nonito Donaire wins the bantamweight title again at 118 pounds. He fought for an interim belt. So just want to give a congratulations to him and to Rose Namajunas, and like we said, to Kamaru Usman. 3 great champions, 3 great fighters that are still going. So with that being said, Bud, not a lot of fight action this week. We just covered it all from the UFC and the boxing world. I just want to throw at you a little preview. Boxing has been hot and heating up in Japan. We got another fight coming up. It's on the 19th of this week of June. That is the new 147-pound champion, Brian Norman Jr., the youngest champion currently in boxing at 24 years of age. And he is going to be fighting Jin Sasaki in Japan. Sasaki from Japan. I am not familiar with Sasaki. I don't think most out there probably are or aren't. Just want to hear quick little preview thoughts for that upcoming fight on the 19th.
I love Norman. He's a complete fighter. I also think that he's I think it's important. I think he's a good person too. I think that he's solid inside the ring, solid outside the ring. He's got the right people around him. I think that if you make the right decisions outside the ring, you're going to make the right decisions inside the ring. And you're going to have a chance to have a career. You don't have a chance to have a career no matter how talented you are if you don't have right people around you and you don't have yourself in the right direction, in the right mind frame to make the right choices outside the ring as well as inside the ring. You just, no matter how good your talent is, it don't matter. You're not going to be around. You're gonna put yourself into bad positions where your talent's not going to get a chance to continue to blossom. Norman will continue to blossom. This is a fight. He's going into enemy territory. He's going into hostile environment. Not hostile, but he's going into another country. He's going to somebody else's backyard. He is a talented kid, Norman, as I just said. I think he's the full package. He needs to continue, obviously, to get experience. This is the next step in that. Not only the experience of the style of guy that he's fighting and the talent that he's fighting, but again, going on the road, showing that he can do it on the road and dealing with all those elements that come with going on the road. I think Norman is not only talented physically with all the abilities that he has, he's technically solid. His people do a good job. Sasaki is not as good technically, but I'll tell you what Sasaki is. He is a game, strong, explosive guy that throws a lot of left hooks. I mean, Norman, go watch Joe Frazier tapes because this guy's going to be throwing left hooks at you. I know he throws other punches too, but he will load up on left hooks in close, and he fights in spurts. He is like like when you ever get caught in a rain shower. Where 1 minute it's sunny out, it's calm, it's everything, and then all of a sudden, bang, the clouds open up, and there's a freaking torrential burst of rain. That's Sasaki. You better not fall asleep on this guy. You better try to put him asleep, but you better not fall asleep on him because suddenly he'll open up with a rain burst of punches, left hooks, and they're all big punches. To use a term that you heard during when Cus D'Amato made it famous during the Tyson era, throwing with bad intentions. He throws everything with freaking bad intentions. He throws everything hard to knock your block off. And you can punch inside some of that because he does load up on everything. So you have a chance to catch him on the outside, a chance to catch him on the inside. But you better be alert because he will throw bombs at you. At the end of the day, I think Norman's defense, his overall technique, his overall ability and package will get the job done. The thing that will be the downfall for Sasaki, he's got a lot of heart, he's got power, but he is deficient defensively. You can hit him with shots. He's right in front of you. He does try to keep his hands up, but he is right there to be found. And there's one punch in particular I think Norman might be well served to use, the uppercut, because he's right there in front of you, doesn't move his head, and you can split the guard with guys like that with the uppercut. I think that's a pretty good breakdown on a fight that, we don't have a lot of information on Sasaki. And even on Norman. Norman, we have what we have, but he hasn't been up to the Alps yet in boxing. He hasn't been up to the, Mount Everest of fighters yet where we could say, oh, we know what he's going to do at that altitude. We don't know that yet. We think we know it. And I think that I do know that Norman will be okay when he does climb those higher peaks.
Yeah, it's a good breakdown. We'll circle back, obviously, and cover this next week. Norman heads into this fight as a 5-1 favorite, going into enemy territory. We'll see if he could get it done and be successful in his first title defense. So with that being said, bud, the last thing I want to throw at you in some boxing news before we wrap it up here. Turki Al-Shalik made a comment and said he's done with the Tom and Jerry fights. He doesn't want to see any more running. There's been talk of maybe instituting 18-foot rings as opposed to the more standard 20-foot rings. I just want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about that? And with this conversation, is that something that maybe we should have had this conversation sooner? In basketball, there's a 10-foot hoop. It doesn't change. In football, it's a 100-yard field. Should there be a standard ring size in boxing?
When I was doing the Friday night fights, and it was, for the people out there that remember Friday night fights, I'll tell you, we had an 18-year run. And the people loved it. The people that loved it, they still talk about it. They say it's, it's something they're never going to forget. And when it was right because we matched the styles properly. When it was bad, and there was plenty of times it was bad, it was because we didn't. I used to beg the powers that be. And I used to, whenever I got a chance, I would say at ESPN, please, let's get a real matchmaker who knows how to make matches, who knows how to merge styles. Styles do make fights, as I said earlier. That knows, because this is an entertainment. But yeah, we love the sweet science. Yeah, I love a guy that, just like you go to a baseball game and you watch a guy, a pitcher who can only throw the ball 80 miles an hour, like a great Maddox, the great pitcher. But he's able to hit the corners. He's able to change up the speeds, mix it up. He's able to go from 80 miles an hour to 65 and just take the bat off the guy's shoulder and take it out of his hands. He's able to just outmaneuver the hitter. Yeah, there's people that love that. But for the most part, when it comes to boxing, most people, there's a lot of people, they love Mayweather. They love and Mayweather mixed offense too, so let's not go crazy on that. But there's plenty of fans that appreciate where you can't hit a guy and appreciate where, even though you're bigger and stronger, it doesn't matter because he does know how to box. He does know how to make you miss. He does know how to make you where you feel like you have no power. Because if you can't hit something, you can't hurt it. Yeah, we like to watch those guys too. But for the most part, most boxing fans want to see the ball go over the fence. They want to see the home runs. They want to see some men on base. They don't want to see walking men to get them on base. They want to see hits. And I think that it's so important. Yeah, the size of the ring. If you make it smaller, you force guys to fight a little bit more, all of that. But then you're going to have the argument you're taking away from the sweet science, the guys that want to move and want to make you miss. But you're really not. You could put Pernell Whitaker, one of the great defensive fighters. You could put Floyd Mayweather or any of those guys. You could put those guys. You could put, Willie Pep. You could put those guys in a small ring, and you're not going to hit them. You're still not going to find them. Whatever space is there, they're going to find it. And sometimes they don't even need to find space. They're going to move their head, and they're going to do like Cuz used to tell me. You can't hit this guy in the backside with a handful of buckshot with him standing right in front of you. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful too. But it's so important. Obviously, Turkey Al-Sheikh is talking about the Skull Canelo fight, where,
For sure. Devin Haney fight as well.
Yeah,
There's been a few.
There's been a couple. And again, you could do all the tailoring you want with a suit. You take the suit to a tailor, but you take it. I had a good one. I had this good Italian old guy, Neil. He was good. He's not around no more. And you take it to a tailor, and, he makes certain custom adjustments here and there. And you could do that. But at the end of the day, you still have to, the suit still has to be a pretty good suit. You know what I mean? You can't bring them dungarees and expect them to make it look like a tuxedo, And it's the same thing in this case. Yeah, you can make the ring smaller. You can do this. You can do that. But you got to have, and there's not a lot of guys that know the sport, but you got to have a good matchmaker. UFC has a good matchmaker. You have to have a good matchmaker that says this style belongs with this style. And at the end of the day, it will make a good fight. Because at the end of the day, you have to please the audience. Because without the audience, you could have all the sweet science, you could have all the whatever, and it could be beautiful. But if nobody's watching it, then what are you doing it for? You gotta take care of the audience. And that means you have to satisfy the palate. And the palate, for the most part, in the boxing audience, and the same thing with the MMA, UFC, and that's the formula that Dana White has found, that you make good fights. And to make good fights, you have to put together the right styles. You can't put in a guy that, is going to win the 100-meter, Olympic trials, and he actually thinks he's in the trials when he's in the ring. Somebody forgot to tell him, no, that's next month. The running, that's next month. This right now, you're actually in a boxing ring. You can't put a guy in there with a guy who's going to come forward and never be able to find the guy. You have to have a proper contrast of styles that complement each other at the end of the day, that make the audience say, I'm going to watch this channel instead of that channel. It's that simple. And Turkey Al-Sheikh, the new face of boxing, and he is, whether you like it or not, he is. He's been bringing us fights that we didn't have before. He's been putting on fights, paying for fights that we just weren't getting before. And he understands that. He's learning along the way. I'll give him credit. He's got his eyes open. He's watching. He's saying, hey, the fans didn't like this one. I'm going to change it. I'm going to change the formula. And I think that's part of the reason why he's with Dana White, because he sees that Dana White understands that element of it, obviously, that you have to put on appetizing fights, appealing fights that appeal to the audience.
Absolutely. Those are some great points. I think it's a great topic and conversation, and I think you nailed it. I think with the UFC and Dana White, there'll be fighters that maybe stylistically don't make the best matchups, and even though they're right there in line to fight for a title, they need to wait a little bit longer. And in some cases, that happens to the wrestlers, right? Until the fight makes more sense from a stylistic standpoint. think in boxing it's a little tougher when you have a million sanctioning bodies and belts, and these fights get forced on you, and we don't get to be selective in the style of the matchups. But I do like to hear what you said in regards to a good fighter or a good boxer is going to be able to box regardless. If they did change to a smaller ring, I don't necessarily say, well, now you're penalizing these guys. Great fighters find ways to overcome and to win. And I think that would still happen no matter what.
No, well said, bud. Well said. And I concur. I love using these fancy words once in a while. But no, I agree. I agree 100%.
And I miss the Friday night fights, as a lot of people do out there. I wish I would come back for many reasons. And you're right, it was great matchups. It was the fighters. It was the Mickey Wards and the Emmanuel Burtons and the Omar Shikas and you name it. But when I look at some of the venues, it makes me think it's a combination. I know at the Great Blue Horizon, where you guys had many legendary fights, those had to be small rings. Those weren't 20, 22-foot rings, were they?
No. No. They when you went into those places, you could be sure that if the ring wasn't small before you got there, it became small when you got there. You were not in a place where you could run around. They wanted to have good fights. They had to. You brought up a good point. They had to put fannies in the seats. Those arenas. They didn't depend on the TV money. They depended on an audience coming. So for an audience to come, and they were running regular shows there. So for an audience to come regularly, they had to know what they were going to get. It's like going to a restaurant. You got to know you're going to get good food. If you're not getting good food, you're not coming back. I mean, it's not more complicated than. Well, it's the same thing. If you got these small time, and they were small time, and they're the lifeblood of boxing, these small time promoters. They really are. Without them, we don't get to the big fights because the fighters don't get the experience to get to the big fights, to grow, to become better. They have to have a place to grow, to develop. And these promoters, they understood the Don Shoguns from out west, and the other guys who were on the East Coast. There was a few of them. They had the Artie Palulas and those kind of guys, the Jimmy Birchfields, those kind of guys. They understood that you had to. They were making their bread by having regular shows with a regular audience. So you had to put good fights on. So you had to do anything you could to make sure that those fights were not going to be. They were not going to be stinkers. They were not going to be the kind of fight that would keep the audience from coming back. They understood that. So, and to your last point, the atmosphere made for better fights. When you put it in, that was another thing. I used to beg these guys at ESPN, but nobody, they were too busy doing other stuff. They didn't understand. It's not just a matter of every Friday night that you have a fight on. You have to have the right fight on, and you have to have the right fight on in the right place. And I used to beg them, please, do what they did in the old days. Start to go to neighborhoods. Start to go to local places, to local club areas where the crowd is there, where there's a local kid there that the crowd is coming out to see, and build around that, because with that, you're going to have something that adds to the fight. It's called atmosphere, what you touched on. It's called passion. You don't get that in the casinos. You don't get that where they don't care who's going to win. You get that. You don't get that in a place where, you go to a big casino and they're giving tickets away, to corporate people. And they're there because they're there for the business part of it. They're not there because they're rooting for somebody. You got to try to build these fights around certain venues where there's a local fighter that has a local following, and you build that following and you create that atmosphere. It makes a big difference. The buzz, you hear it all the time. Did you feel the buzz? Did you hear the buzz? The hairs on my arms went up. It was electric. That's what you want to get. So you have to be aware of a couple things. Yeah, the styles of the fighters that we talked about. Yeah, the size of the ring that we talked about. But also, yeah, the atmosphere. Yeah, where you're putting the fight. That you're putting it in a place that makes sense to put it. Sometimes they'd have a great Cuban fighter fighting, and they'd be putting them on in Enid, Oklahoma. I'm like, who was thinking this one out? Not for nothing, but I love the fighter, don't get me wrong, but I don't see a lot of people coming out over here in Enid, Oklahoma, to see Jose Escalada. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but use your nugget, use your noodle a little bit. Please. But they didn't. We got lucky, that's all.
Yeah. Interesting conversation. It'd be interesting to see if more of these conversations happen and there is some kind of reform or changes to the great sport that's been around for so long and doesn't make a lot of changes. If we could start making some of these changes, maybe we'll get to the National Commission and the administrators as well down the line, hopefully one of these days. So let us know. Let us know what you guys think. Should there be a standard size ring? Do you like it the way it is? Should there be changes implemented that way? But I do think it starts good conversation. And hopefully the viewers enjoyed that segment. Before signing off, Bud, just want to give you the floor and any final words?
No, the final word I'll say is two things. One is, to my son's point, you guys ask for things we do, but we're not going to do them if you don't show an appreciation for it, or if you don't back it up, if you don't show that you really wanted it by coming out and showing it, by coming out and watching or making comments, or obviously looking at the things we put out there. You're asking for lists. You've been coming out for the list, so we do what you ask for the most part. So after this show is over during the week, look for the next list. You asked for a list to my son of fighters with bad records who won world titles. We did it. We're gonna do it. It's gonna be out this week, and hopefully you enjoy it, and hopefully you continue to enjoy it. But more importantly, to show you enjoy it, to show that we should continue doing these things by coming out and looking at the stuff, baby, and making my son feel happy. I love when my son smiles. I don't like when he doesn't smile. I don't. I love when he smiles, so make him smile. And the last thing I'll finish with is what I started with. Happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. It's so important. It's the greatest. It's not often that two things merge into one, two very big things merge into one. But in this case, they do. It's one of the greatest responsibilities you can have in life. And at the same time, being a father is one of the greatest joys and pleasures and gifts that you can have in life too. Understand that. Understand the responsibility of it, and understand and appreciate and enjoy the pleasure of watching something that you put there grow and be part of that growth. And in being part of that growth, you're also part of making the world a little better. Yeah, having your say in the world. How many people can say that? Oh, gee, what I do. How many times do you hear people say, I'm not important enough. I don't have enough money. I don't have a big enough position really to have a say, to really make a change. Oh no, you do. By that beautiful person that you were part of borning. You do have that chance. Develop them, grow them the right way into something special. Give them everything they know, everything they need to grow into a special person. And in that way, yeah, you have a say at the big table. Yeah, no matter what you do for a living, no matter where you come from, you do have a say. That child will make sure you have a say by the way you teach it and with what it does when it goes forward into the world and the difference that it makes because of what you taught it in the world. God bless everybody. Happy Father's Day.
Yeah. Happy Father's Day, everybody. Happy Father's Day, bud. Thank you. I love you. And thank you for all the viewers for chiming in. Let us know what you guys think. Upcoming lists. Please like, comment, subscribe. And we'll be back next week.